Well, as the video title says, unfortunately the stock twins are bad. So on startup, the first couple startups, there was some exhaust or some oil smoke coming out of the exhaust, and I'm hoping it was going to burn off and clear up, you know, as a couple heat cycles on the turbos. But that wasn't the case. So it's leaking oil out of the front, so the compressor side, and through the exhaust an excessive amount. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the stock twins off and just accelerate the single turbo kit. I've been collecting parts for it, but just wasn't planning on putting it on this soon. So I've got to order a turbo. I'm going to have a custom one made, or a semi-custom one made. It's going to be a Borg Warner. I'll probably have the specs in the next video. But so this video is going to be about prepping for the single turbo kit. Also, we have some new t-shirts. This is the Supra one on the website. I'll put the link in the description below. We have a couple new designs up too. Check those out. Any of those shirts that you purchase will help support the channel. Alright, so we've got a pair of these Stillen urethane side skirts to go on. I'm going to use as many as the factory mounting locations as possible. So the front fender, we'll take these little clips off. We think bought these nut clips off eBay. So we'll install the 2 nut clips back here in the factory locations. We'll take these little plastic inserts out. Just pop out. And then install the nut clip. That's kind of hard to see. Install the nut clip in the existing hole, and that'll give us a thread to screw into. So you wind up with something like that. Okay, so we've got the left-hand skirt installed. Fits very good. I just had to take a heat gun, warm it up to make it a little pliable, and it's molded perfectly to fit the car. So I'm very pleased with the fit up. Alright, so there we got the little extension welded onto the lower intercooler mount. This is the left-hand side. Basically we'll do the same for the right. Little one. We'll extend this slot, or we may just drill a hole to match the lower intercooler mount. Alright, and then the right hand mount, there's a bolt hole that was parallel with the bottom of the intercooler, so that one was a little more simple. We'll grind the weld smooth, drill the mounting holes, and then install them. Alright, so building the intercooler piping, basically I have 3-inch universal aluminum kit that we're going to cut up and weld together to fit. So this one we're going to have come out of the intercooler 180 degree around, and then we're going to shoot through this hole, and then we'll turn up and go to the turbo. So this one we're going to have to cut in half, add a little bit of a straight section in because it doesn't quite reach. It needs to be about 11.5 center to center to line up with the intercooler, and then go through the splash guard hole. Alright, so just a little tip here. I'm trying to measure center to center on a pipe instead of trying to guess, you know, eyeball it, guess where the centers are on each side. Just measure from outside edge to the same outside edge. So this is 9 3/8, so we need to add about 2 1/8 inches of straight section in the middle of this bend to make it line up with the intercooler. Okay, so we have just a scrap piece of straight, so we need a 2 1/8, so we'll mark it. Kind of hard to see the mark. Okay, there we go. And then basically we're going to add this in between the 180s. Essentially we're going to cut this apart, make 2 90s, a little straight section. Alright, so we got the chop saw with a metal blade on it. Get the mark lined up. Slide this down so we get our hand out of the way. Okay, so we wound up with 2 90s. We're going to add that straight section in the middle. So essentially we'll wind up with a pipe looking like this. The only bad thing about the chop saw is it leaves a lot of burrs behind. So we just hit it with a flap wheel disc to knock all those off before we try to weld them up. Okay, so we've got a little tack on each side. Next we'll join the other 90 like that, put a little tack on it. Check the dimension, make sure we're good. Check the dimensions, make sure we got 11.5. It fits pretty nicely, so we're going to go ahead and weld this out all the way around on both sides. Then we'll make the cut here, and then this side we'll cut the bead off, and then this will get a probably like a 15-degree bend over, and then a 90 to shoot straight up to the turbo. Yeah, well, not the prettiest welds, but they will do. I'll clean them up a little bit, and then we're going to powder fit these pipes, so they'll be hidden, but they'll be functional. That's really all that matters. So removing the stock twins, basically I started at the very front, removed the first compressor housing cartridge, then removed its exhaust components, unbolted here. It's a 5 or 6 bolt flange that bolts up to the rear turbo. Remove the rear turbo, and then that allowed access to all the bolts, all the nuts on the exhaust manifold. Okay, so this is what it looks like with the turbos removed. We got a couple things we got to clean up. It's pretty dirty in here. Went ahead and installed the oil plug. So that's the front factory oil feed, and then we're using the rear to feed the single. Just taped them up that way the degreaser doesn't get in the oil, down in the oil pan. Also taped up the oil drain line in the bottom. A couple things we're going to fix too on the water lines. So this rear nipple we don't need anymore. So I'm going to bend it up, weld it closed, and then also on the water pump, same thing. Don't need this one anymore, so I'm going to bend it up and weld it closed also. And then on the water neck, same thing. Don't need these 2 nipples, so I'm going to cut them off, drill it out, see about sanding this smooth, and then welding it up and powder coating wrinkle black to match the valve covers. Alright, so for the single turbo we've got the feed fitting goes into the block with the crush washer, and then plug that plugs off the rear oil passage. So these screw into where the factory twin turbo feed lines went to. Alright, so on the 2 water outlets that we don't need, basically I put a socket on it, bent it up so I could access it with the TIG torch, and then smashed it flat with a pair of pliers. Did the same thing for this rear one that we're not going to need. So we're going to go ahead and TIG it up, and that way we won't ever have to worry about them leaking. Alright, so that's what it looks like with the extra water nipples TIG'd up. That's stainless, by the way. I thought it was aluminum at first, but definitely not aluminum. Also, we're going to cut down the lower water neck. Let's see if we can see the mark there. So we're going to cut it back to here, put a little bead around it, and then that way we can get a little bit more room for the intercooler piping coming out of the turbo. Okay, so we've got the just test fitted the exhaust manifold. Make sure it fits up good. Good clearance around everything. Wastegate will be in a good position, and plenty of room for the downpipe to go through. Alright, so we've got the lower water neck modified. Let's see if we can get the light better. So we cut it short, and then welded a little bead on it. I'm trying to get it where we can see. And so this is the piece that we cut off, and then we'll put the lower radiator hose back on. The little bead gives the clamp something to hold on to keep it from slipping off. Okay, so that's all the modifications we had to do to the cooling system for the single turbo swap. Alright, so we're going to modify the upper water neck. Basically, we're going to cut off these 2 nipples that aren't going to be needed anymore, and then weld it up, grind it, and then powder coat it black. Alright, so this is what we've got now on the upper water neck. Cut off the 2 nipples that we don't need. Ground it most of the way flush. We're going to fill in these holes, and then grind it again. We have to do it a couple times to get it where we want it. Alright, so here's the first weld up. We're going to grind it down and then see how much we have to weld up again. Alright, so this is what we ended up with after the first grind. Did grind through it where the hole was on the top. Bottom one looks pretty good. It has a small little spot. There's a small little spot on the bottom that we're gonna put a little bit more material on and grind it smooth again. And we'll fill the hole in on the top, grind that smooth again. Alright, so here's what it looks like once we got it all ground down. And then we'll powder coat it wrinkle black. Alright, and then this is the finished result after the wrinkle black powder. So we'll get it installed back on the car. Alright, so new gaskets and O-rings for it. If you need the part numbers, that's for the flat 3-hole gasket. This is the small sensor that drives the dash gauge. And then these are the O-rings. There's 2 that go on the tube, the transition tube in between the bottom of the neck and the top of the pump. Okay, also, while I had it apart, I went ahead and nickel plated these, the 2 bolts that holds on the water neck. Okay, and then a little tip, go ahead and mount the water neck back to the engine and then install the sensors. That way it holds the water neck still for you and you're not fighting it, trying to screw the sensors back in. Alright, so next we've got a new Toyota Slave and Master going in to replace the original equipment. Alright, so first I took the cap off and pulled the little button out, or float, whatever you call it. Used a large syringe to extract all the fluid I possibly could. Went underneath, opened the bleed valve to let all the lines drain out. Went ahead and cracked all the fittings loose. Then we're going to go inside the car, take off the 2 10mm nuts and the bolt on the clutch pedal. Then we'll go to take the master off. Then we'll go underneath, take the 2 screws out of the, or 2 bolts out of the Slave and pull the line off and get them swapped out. Alright, so this is the syringe that I used. I picked it up at the parts store. Holds 150 milliliters, so use it on brakes or clutch to pull fluid out of the reservoirs. Alright, so old versus the new master cylinder. To remove it, there were 2 12mm nuts, and then there was 1 cotter pin with a hairpin keeper pin. So you just pulled the keeper, pushed the cotter through, took the 2 12s off, removed the clutch line that's 10mm, and then push it through the pull it through the firewall into the engine bay. So installing a new one will just be a reverse of those steps. Alright, so we have a Powerhouse Racing short stud kit for the exhaust manifold. Alright, so removing the factory studs just using a 6mm socket. Okay, got the studs and the nuts over here, and then take one of the short studs, make sure you have the correct end out. You get it started by hand. And then grab your 6mm again. Alright, so there we have the new studs installed, cleaned up a little bit now, and the manifold will be ready to go in. Alright, so now we're going to install this catch can. Tap these ports with 3/8 MPT. Got some Russell black fittings, and then some stainless steel braided hose from Summit Racing. And so we'll mock this up. We'll have to make it a bracket to mount this, and then we'll make some hoses. Alright, so I'm thinking the best position for this catch can is going to be over here behind the intake manifold. There's a bracket here that's not being used anymore, so I probably can use those mounting holes, make a little bracket to attach it to hold the catch can here, and then the lines will route like that. I put these 90 fittings in place, kind of give an idea. This hose would route back and behind over, so that's kind of what we're gonna build here. Alright, so I got a piece of scrap, about 1/8 inch aluminum, took the bracket off here. So we're going to transfer the hole pattern to the aluminum, and then we're going to kind of cut out a piece, give us a little bit of length when trim it as we go, kind of design this bracket on the fly. Alright, so this is the shape I'm going to cut out, have the bolt pattern transferred over for mounting this bracket. So this is what we've got it cut out. We're going to drill the holes and then put a little bend across, probably about 30 to 45 degree bend, and then mock it back up. Alright, and then this is what we ended up with the kit, with the catch can mounted. Use the existing bolts there, and then the two new bolts bolt to a bracket underneath to hold the catch can on, and then the two lines that run to both of the valve covers. Alright, so I had to make an adapter for the tag, the US tag bolt holes are different than Japan tags, obviously. So we made this adapter, just aluminum flat bar. The far outside holes match the car. The small inside holes match the tag. So we're going to use these clip nuts, slide them on here. That gives us some threads. Use these button head screws, so a little bit lower clearance, and then use these standard hex head screws to hold the tag on. Alright, that'll do it for this episode. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up. It helps me with making these videos. If you're new around here and like this type of content, please consider subscribing. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.